Welcome to Truth for Our Time with your host, Tamara Scott.
And good day. Thank you for joining us. I am Tamara Scott, and we help you. We help you when the headlines hit home. We help you live God's Word in today's world, because if He expects you to live through it, He's directed you how to do it somehow, some way, in the wisdom of His Word. We thank you for taking time out to join us today. If you're listening live, you can join us on Webcast 1 Live, 10 a.m. on Wednesdays. 10 a.m. on Wednesdays. You can join in, watch in, look in. You can even call in 515-244-0077. Otherwise, we catch some of you on Sundays at noon on 99.3 FM. And I appreciate both of those studios allowing us to be part of their family. Both the Webcast 1 Live, Mac, thank you for sharing the air with me, and 99.3. What an honor to be on that studio with some of the other teachers and preachers and just truth tellers that are there. So it's my pleasure. So thank you for listening in. If there's ever a show where you want to catch that, you missed the original, or you heard about it, or you want to forward it to a friend, we have those at tamarascott.com. tamarascott.com. You can find the archives there. Today, my guest is Bill Northey. Bill Northey is the Secretary of Agriculture here in Iowa. We're going to be talking about a variety of topics, from the lawsuit between Waterworks, Des Moines Waterworks, and they've isolated 3 counties as the guilty party. I don't know how that happens. Maybe we'll find out today. Also, we'll talk about some of the other issues, whether it's bird flu or the avian flu, whatever you want to call it, and issues impacting us as I guess I still think of us as an agricultural state. We have a lot of other wonderful industries and economies in Iowa, but I still think of us as an agricultural state. So for those of you like me who might have grown up in town, we were the townies at the school. That's what they called us, not the bus kids, the townie kids. So you might learn some things like I will, talking with our wonderful Secretary of Agriculture, Bill Northey. But I have a couple announcements first I need to make. We need to thank our sponsors, Crave, Christians Reviving American Values Every Day. Christians Reviving American Values Every Day, or ChristiansForAmerica.com is where you can find them on the website. We thank them just for their partnership with us and their trust and their support as we started this journey on air. We just appreciate the work that they're doing. Other announcements, I need to let you know, next week, the 27th is a Wednesday, at 12:30 p.m., there'll be a press conference at the Airport Holiday Inn with a new group called U.S. PI, U.S. Parents Involved in Education. There is a novel idea, right? U.S. Parents Involved in Education. And they have a new program they're starting called Stop Fed Ed. Not FedEx, that's another company, a whole other thing. Stop Fed Ed. The intrusion of the federal government. We've seen it so much with Common Core, with the testing, the park testing and the SBAC testing that we're dealing with right here in Iowa. I attended a hearing before the session started that Friday. I think it was the 3rd or the 4th before the session started. We are dealing with these intrusions right here in Iowa, and Peg Luxick, Dr. Peg Luxick, will be here to talk about that at the conference, and then she'll give a little mini seminar right afterwards for those of you who can attend. So we'd love to have you come, free of charge, no cost, Airport Holiday Inn, right across from the airport on Fleur Drive. Join us at 12:30 and just learn a little bit about what you need to know about what's happening and impacting your kids. This actually will fit what we're going to talk about today, the cost of overregulation. This is exactly what this is. It's intrusion into your local control. You lose your local control, data issues, data collection issues. All of these things come into play with this SBAC, and there's now a lawsuit. 2 moms in Missouri are filing a lawsuit, I think, against the SBAC Corporation, the fact that they are being forced to be part of something because other states are doing it. And they've been given the go-ahead from a judge to move forward with that lawsuit. So we'll be talking about that more. And Michelle Crystal is warning us, as just a mom on the ground, to pull your kids out. You can opt your kids out of these intrusive tests. Understand, some of these tests take more time than the Bar Association, the bar exam. Think that through. Tony Nassif, for those of you who followed the work we do on trafficking, human trafficking, Tony Nassif was one of our best warriors on this from Cedar Rapids, Iowa, the Cedar Foundation. He's had conferences across the nation and had invited me to speak across the nation with them. And we lost Tony just a week ago, just health issues. And that's a real blow to us in the trafficking fight. And we are going to pray for Tony's family, and we will continue the work. We'll continue the march on to free all. You know, trafficking is one of the main issues in America today. We think slavery is done in the way that many know about it and learned about it in school, but human trafficking and human slavery is now going on full force right in this nation, more than you'd think. Okay, now we're going to jump to our guest today, Bill Northey. Thank you for joining me.
You bet. Thank you for the invitation, Tamara.
You have been Secretary of Ag, is it
2007. I was elected in 2006, so this is my 10th year as Secretary of Ag here in Iowa.
You are doing a great job.
Oh, thank you.
It doesn't seem to be a partisan office like so many other offices.
Yeah.
And people are just very pleased with your work.
I think probably you come to the office with a point of view that's reflective of your party and your politics, but for the most part, agriculture is very, as you say, nonpartisan, where we work across the aisle with legislators, we work across the aisle, we have farmers that are Republicans, Democrats, Independents, and folks that wouldn't have anything to do with politics at all, and we need to work with all of them.
You do, and so as I said, I'm not a ag kid, though I have great respect for it, just like I'm not a military kid. My hair would have never made it through boot camp, but I have great respect for my military. So here in Iowa, sometimes it frustrates me when I see politicians and candidates. It's almost like we have big city envy and we're chasing all of the metropolitan areas. We feed the world. Am I right in that?
We really do. An amazing productive machine here in Iowa with the individual farmers out there across the counties. We had our best corn crop we've ever had this last year.
Really?
And our best yield, so we measure yield in bushels per acre, 192 bushels per acre. Amazing numbers. Total production, top producing state. We've actually been the top corn producing state for 22 years in a row, 37 of the last 38 years. And even when we look at that, I think one of the most amazing statistics is if we only have 3 countries in the world that produce more corn than Iowa does. That's the U.S., China, and Brazil. And all those other countries that produce a lot of corn, from South Africa to Argentina to Ukraine, none of those produce as much. Actually, the whole EU together produces a little bit less than the state of Iowa produces. And on the soybean side as well, we only have 3 countries that produce more soybeans than Iowa. We regained that number 1 spot in the state. Last 2 years, Illinois has been that number 1 producer. We've been number 1 20 of the last 25 years. But the U.S., Brazil, and Argentina produce more soybeans than Iowa. I used to say 4 countries because it used to be that China produced more soybeans than Iowa. That's where soybeans came from. This last year, we produced more soybeans than the country of China.
Than the founding country.
They buy a lot of soybeans, but we produce more. And so this engine here is so important. We feed a lot of livestock with that. We certainly make fuel with that as well. That drives a lot of the other businesses in Iowa that don't necessarily even think of themselves as agriculture. Obviously,
right.
John Deere does and Pioneer does, but some of our insurance companies and our banks that handle a lot of the finances that are going back and forth and the payments and insuring the assets that are out there, the multi-billion dollars worth of assets that are out there. It is a huge driver economically in Iowa.
It absolutely is. When things are going well in the field, they're going well in the markets, they're going well in the economy statewide. So remind me again, we're 3rd in soybeans. And what are the 3 countries ahead of us?
U.S., Brazil, and Argentina.
I get to hear you speak when we go to all these political events. And you are one of the few people, I think, who can make farming, agriculture fun to hear about, fun to learn about.
Well, there's so much amazing information and things that are going on and new technologies and innovation that's happening. The challenge is we in agriculture can kind of talk our own ag code, and once it's very easy to lose people in all that, or get excited about something that only farmers get excited about, and not be able to talk to others in Iowa about the neat things that are happening, from tractors that drive with GPS to new efforts around soil health and understanding how we make more biological activity in that soil and build organic matter. And we got a lot of things going, and I'd argue because Iowa is kind of the center of a lot of that production, we get some of that innovation here faster than other places get it, in part because if they can get 5% of the Iowa market, that's sometimes sometimes bigger than 20% of somebody else's market. And we have innovative producers, and we have folks that will engage. So we got a lot of good things to talk about. The challenges is finding those things and being able to get that 30 seconds that can interest somebody about things that are going on.
Right. And of course, we always hear about it during a political year. And I am going to ask you before we go to break, the RFS, Renewable Fuel Standards. So what's going on there?
So the Renewable Fuel Standard was set up several years ago. Ethanol used to have a subsidy. And when the subsidy went away, folks said, okay, let's find a way to get more access to the retailers' pumps because we had oil companies that were really controlling the access to those pumps. Let's do that actually, it's a mandate, but it's a market-driven way, so that folks that sell more than what the standard is get credits. They're called RINs, and they can sell those to folks that want to sell less than that. It continues to encourage more production. And we've seen that ratchet up over time, and folks have kept up with that. The question right now is, does that stay with what the law was passed, or does that get reduced? The Obama administration the last few years have reduced it, or actually just not even given us numbers as a target. So taken the total effectiveness of that renewable fuel standard away. And now we see the politics of folks saying, is that picking winners and losers? Is that mandating from the government? Or is that encouraging the market to work? My point of view in looking at ethanol often being produced for less than the price of gasoline and yet not growing was that we needed some help to make sure that there was a market response. Without that, we weren't seeing the market response. And we see that because we have, I'd argue, oil companies that control so many pieces, they don't let a non-oil product be sold at greater amounts.
Okay. And we see our Iowa delegation, the whole Iowa delegation, Republicans and Democrats, all 4 congressional members, 2 senators, wrote a letter to Administrator McCarthy and asking, I just bounced my screen, for the conventional biofuel and 2018 biodiesel renewable fuel standards to be consistent with the enacted law. So they're putting pressure on, which is exactly what our congressional members should be doing.
Absolutely.
And, of course, it's entered the fray. We heard in this studio just yesterday, Steve King was here and responded to some comments by our governor towards one of the candidates and said that particular candidate was Cruz, and he felt that Cruz had a program of his own on the renewable fuel standards. And so that's for you to find out as voters. You need to get involved. You need to figure it out. You need to ask the questions. Look on their websites. Just do a search. You'll find articles. You'll find information about it. Anything more on that topic before we go on?
You know, Iowa Renewables Fuels was in town yesterday. I talked with Steve some there, and he has been a huge defender of the renewable fuel standard and the ethanol industry. And he really does believe that Senator Cruz has plans of how to do this beyond the renewable fuel standard, and argues that others don't. Others will say, well, right now the game in town is the renewable fuel standard, and that's what he should be supported. So there's a tension. It's hard to delve down into that. I think at the end of the day, we want folks to give ethanol a chance to play a greater role in the future. And there's probably going to be different ways for that to happen. But there probably are some candidates that don't want that to happen as well, and it's hard to sort through those in the midst of a crazy campaign.
And is it because of their ties to big oil? That's a fair question.
Yes.
So we're going to have to go to break here. We'll come back. We'll be talking more about that lawsuit that we talked about, isolating 3 Iowa counties. for nitrates in the river. So we'll be getting the Secretary of Agriculture, Bill Northey's expert opinion on that. And we'll be coming back and talking about a few more things as far as administrative law, administrative code, and how it impacts you as a family, what we could save you. And so we'll be right back after these messages. I thank you for listening along. You're listening to Tamara Scott on Truth for Our Time on 99.3 FM and Webcast One Live Studios.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcastonelive.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Rock and Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens. Rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rock and Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back to Truth for Our Time with your host, Tamara Scott.
And thank you for staying with us. I am Tamara Scott. We're here with Truth for Our Time, helping you when the headlines hit home, living God's Word in today's world. Encourage a Legislator is a program that the Concerned Women for America have done since 1990s. I don't know if it was 98 or 99. I think Iowa was the first state to do this. Kim Lehman was the state director of Concerned Women for America at the time. And they have now fashioned this across the nation. States do it all over. But what it is, it started out encourage a legislator. Then we changed it to encourage a leader. And so it's the EAL program. If you want to take part in this, we would ask you to call the Encourage a Legislator office at the CWA office, 515-259-0087, 259-0087. Have to look and make sure I get the right number there. What it is, it's very simple. 1 Timothy 2:1 and 2 tells you to pray for those in leadership. Pray for your governor. government. This is the easiest, most efficient way you can do that, and it's fairly inexpensive as well. It comes with a packet of 16 pre-printed postcards, and on those postcards are quotes from your founding fathers affirming our Christian heritage as a nation, and a scripture verse to encourage them in their work. Then you just take those cards, you fill out the address of whatever recipient, whatever leader is in the packet that's been assigned to you, and you can request a specific leader. We have a lot of that happening as well. And then you fill out that address, stamp it, and write your return address so that they know there's an actual person, an individual who is carrying them in prayer. Then you can put those in your car, on the countertop, wherever is that safe spot where once a week you'll remember to toss it in the mail each, maybe the same day each week. Maybe it's a Monday or a Wednesday for you. When you do that, pray for them. Pause and pray. Take time to pray for their family, pray for them in leadership, their decisions, their protection. They drive a lot of miles on their cars when they're in leadership in Iowa. And so we just ask you to just build a relationship of prayer. No lobbying is to take place in those cards. The relationships are built, and sometimes later lobbying can ensue on an issue. But on these particular cards, it is not confrontational. It is a peaceable way of carrying out 1 Timothy 2:1 and 2. So if you'd like to do that, we'd like to help you. We've got 150 legislators, 7 Supreme Court justices here in Iowa, and then our state offices like Bill Northey, our Secretary of Ad.
It's a wonderful, very meaningful thing to get every week and be reminded that somebody out there is praying. So.
Yes, because in office, you and I both know it. In office, you get told what to do, what you should do, but seldom do you just get told thank you.
Yes.
And so that's why one of the main reasons. So 515-259-0087. 259-0087, and we'll make sure you get a packet. If you belong to a church or a book club, take 5 packets. Tell us we've got 10 members. We can find 10 people we'll cover in prayer. Let us know. We'd love to have all of those distributed by the end of January so everyone is covered in the legislature for their prayers. Okay, Bill Northey, I want to get to this lawsuit.
Okay.
Des Moines Waterworks is not a part of the government. Is it a private entity?
It really is. It's the membership is appointed by, or the board membership is appointed by the Des Moines City Council and Des Moines Mayor, but it is a standalone agency, so they don't have authority over that. The board itself has that authority.
So that's one of those non-elected bureaucratic boards that we don't frankly like right now.
And there are folks that are talking about changing that. Right now, for example, if you're not in Des Moines, you don't have any board representation at all, and you get told what your charges will be to your homeowners or businesses within your jurisdiction. So there's about 500,000 folks that are served by Des Moines Waterworks.
Okay, 500,000, 500,000, and they really don't have any recourse over rate increases. Okay, so I don't want to drag you into this, but they just got a rate increase last year, 2015, and the article I'm reading is from the Des Moines Register, and it is CEO Waterworks, Bill Stowe, S-T-O-W-E, and I did try to call the office today just so they could have some input in this discussion, and couldn't get through. The lines were all busy. But he is getting a $500,000 bonus. Gosh. He's getting a bonus for every citizen that's under Waterworks. He's getting $1 a head, pretty much, right?
That's right.
$500,000 bonus for just if he stays on his job. The most of us, we call that a paycheck. You stay on your job, you get a paycheck. He gets a $500,000 bonus as they're jacking customer rates 10%. This was in March of 2015. Not to mention, and here's why. This might bring you in. Graham Gillette, the chairman of the utility board, said that Stowe deserves this retention bonus in part for his leadership during this controversial lawsuit against 3 North Iowa counties that's made him a lightning rod for criticism. So they want to make sure that he stays on and does a good job through this. Thank you, Ryan. He's got that on our screen for those of you who are watching live 10 a.m. on Wednesday at Webcast One Live Studios. It's on the screen. 10% rate increase. The utility board said the rate hike will generate $3.2 million in the next year for maintenance and infrastructure improvements. But as Christine Hensley, city council member, has said, this is the wrong one. The lawsuit's the wrong way to go. and we just should be focusing on infrastructure, and I couldn't agree with her more. Stowe already earns $211,665 a year. $211,665 a year, according to his contract. And what really kind of stirred my tea was that if he leaves, and it's for differences with the board, he gets to keep his bonus. So he doesn't really have to stay till 2:20. He just needs to say, I'm mad about something. What a great way to grow discord. I'm not happy, now I'm leaving, and I get to keep my bonus because there's a disagreement.
A little crazy, isn't it? Not the way all small towns across Iowa run
right?
run their municipal
private
utilities.
Entity wouldn't do that to its customers. Mm-hmm. How much more a taxpayer, we serve the people, something that rides off the backs of the taxpayers, should not be doing. Mm-hmm. So absolutely. I promised I wouldn't bring you into that portion of it, only that he's staying on so he can tackle these three counties.
Right. That's right.
Those three counties are Sac, Buena Vista, and I have it written down. Sac, Buena Vista, and
Calhoun County.
Calhoun.
Yes.
Yep, there you go. How did he pick these three?
Well, I don't know that we know for sure. I know he had some information. He'd been collecting some water research from up in those areas and maybe some other areas as well. These are smaller counties. It's going to be a challenge to have the resources that a Des Moines Water Works has to file the lawsuit. And what he's actually suing is he's suing the drainage districts. So what's a drainage district? In Iowa, like a lot of other states, if you have an area, let's say we have farms and there's 10 other folks like us, and we need to be able to tile drain our farm because they're too wet, and most of these started about 100 years ago, we would get together and say, okay, let's collectively put money into a fund to be able to create an outlet for all of us.
So that's just a community of farmers came together to make things better in their area. And
so they said, okay, we're all going to pay based on how much we benefit, how much land we have there, and how close we are to that tile drainage. And then we will pay our own tile drainage on our own farm to that collective tile. So the drainage districts pay for the collective tile work, and we pay for our own tiling on our own farm. And those drainage districts, most have been around for 100 years. They got put together in the early 1900s. And they really have only authority to do tile drainage. It's a state code that they're under. They don't have authority to tell somebody to do something different on the farmland around water quality. They don't have have legal protection about being sued for damages to others, certainly according to water quality. So when Bill Stowe sues, or the Des Moines Water Works sues those 10 drainage districts, he's now suing them, saying they need to pay damages to Des Moines Water Works because there's nitrate in the water that's coming out of those drainage districts, of which most would say the law says they don't, and they can't, and legally that's not something that they're responsible for. He's also asking that they be required to have a permit to even release water, especially around water quality issues. And while we'll have that for some point sources like sewage treatment plants or municipal sites, we often don't have that for non-point sources like even storm sewers in our cities. We don't have water quality requirements usually. We have some permits, but often not a water quality requirement. And so it would be a significant change. Most would argue it's a heavy legal lift to try and get there. Whether he thought he could make a better case here, the judge that would hear it is a federal judge in Sioux City.
Mark Bennett.
Mark Bennett, and is perceived as someone that might be friendly to that argument. And I don't know Judge Bennett, and I don't know anything about what his past history is there. Others will say that the appeal from that case would go to another panel that would not be likely as friendly. So that case a week ago, Judge Bennett said, we're going to strip off the parts of this. He's a federal judge. We're going to strip off the parts of this that are state-oriented and send that to the Iowa Supreme Court, like can drainage districts be sued for damages? He said, it's not for me as a federal judge to decide that. That's a state law. And so I'm not going to decide the federal pieces until I see that Iowa says yes or no. I'll pull those pieces out if they say no. If they say yes, then I'll use those pieces and be able to look at that within this
Is that a good thing?
I think it is a good thing. I think it's logical. I think it's a good thing. I think I don't know where the Supreme Court will go. I don't even know what their timing is. Originally, this was to be heard in front of Judge Bennett maybe in August. This may delay that because now we'll have another court that has to rule before it gets to Judge Bennett. So I think that makes sense for Judge Bennett to do.
The voluntary reduction strategy. Voluntary.
That's right.
And then it makes me wonder, because they tried to do something good, now is it being used against them?
You know, not really. Maybe some of the attention around water quality is used as a political mallet against agriculture a little bit. But for the most part, our nutrient reduction strategy that we put in place about 3 years ago, well before the lawsuit was filed. The lawsuit was filed about a year ago now. 3 years ago was we sat down with Iowa State University with 25 scientists and say, what can farmers do on their farm to lessen the loss of nitrogen and phosphorus off your farm? And nitrogen and phosphorus are different. They act differently. Nitrogen will often be captured in water itself as it percolates through the soil. I talked about this highly productive soil we have here. It has organic matter in it, former plant material that is wonderful to grow crops in. That's what makes it black and beautiful and grows great crops. And as the water goes down through that soil, it'll pick up small amounts of nitrogen. When it hits a tile line, or if there's no tile at all there and it drains away, it'll carry a little bit of that nitrogen with it. Now, some folks want to say, well, this is just fertilizer nitrogen, because they hear we put fertilizer on crops, and we do, and some of it could be. Some of it's also last year's organic matter from the crops last year. Some of it's the long-term organic matter that's there. Rain has nitrates in it as well.
I've heard that the more lightning in a storm, the more nitrate.
That's right. Now, probably not at levels that affect a health concern. So the levels that Des Moines Water Works has to reduce to is 10 parts per million. That's the federal requirement on the amount of nitrates that's there.
Okay, I'm going to hold you there.
Okay.
We've got to go to break. Stay tuned, because there's more information coming on this, and this will impact you. If the states, counties get sued, it's going to impact all of us. It's intrusive regulation, and we fight that on this show. Stay tuned. We'll be right back.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
I'm Brian Leach, owner of Service Legends, and my position is Chief Talent Officer.
I'm Nicholas Wonderscheid.
I am Bernie Hobbs.
And I'm the Service Manager.
Marketing Director and Client Relations Manager.
Everything that we do is about ensuring that we exceed your expectations.
Our clients are important to us. 100% satisfaction.
We're not just focused on heating and cooling. That's the easiest part of our job, actually, is fixing furnaces and air conditioners.
Everyone that we come in touch with, we want to improve lives.
Bottom line is, we've got our installation guarantees, 25% energy savings guarantee, comfort guarantee, temperature selection guarantee, property protection guarantee.
100% satisfaction guaranteed, fixed rate or it's free.
All of those guarantees are backed up with a 100% money-back guarantee to hold ourselves accountable to making sure that you get what you're after.
Just fixing the problem today. If they have another problem 5 days down the road, it's still fixed rate or it's free.
We use what's called straightforward pricing. Our technicians are going to give you an exact to-the-penny price on what it's going to take before they move forward with any repair. That way you know what to expect.
It's the same price every day.
No surprises.
If you get off work at 5 o'clock in the afternoon, you come home, you realize that, oh, my furnace is broken. Now you need to call somebody out that night. You shouldn't have to pay more for that.
We're guaranteeing service 24/7.
We run afternoons, evenings, nights, weekends. We're staffed to work that.
Phone rings at 3 in the morning. You'll get one of our representatives answering the phone every time.
We're not sending you out to Timbuktu in some call center. It's our Service Legend team members, our mission control team.
I'll take a call anytime.
And then they answer the phones the same way during the day as they do at night.
It's a great day at your service company. How can we make you smile?
That's the only way to provide true 24-hour service.
When you're able to let somebody actually live in their home safely when they weren't able to do that before, where they don't have to stay up at night and worry about, is the heat going to come back on? Are we going to freeze the pipes? Is the baby in the room next door going to be sick because they got too cold? When you're able to help somebody overcome challenges like that, that's impacting a life. That makes a difference. I get goosebumps thinking about it.
I love the team. I love the people that I work with.
We have fun, but we work hard.
I call them my ambassadors of legendary service. If you could just envision what that is, that's who we're sending to your home.
They literally will call in, pick up the phone and call and say, hey, I want to talk to your manager. And I get on the phone, they're like, that technician that was at my house was the greatest technician ever. That's cool to me.
We want to brighten people's days.
Every person that we have going into the house has gone through an extensive background check.
Drug testing, we have a very thorough interview process that 1 out of 140 people make it through.
If we promise you something, that's what you're going to get, no matter what.
We're here when you need us to protect the safety and comfort of your family.
If you're not happy, we're gonna make it right.
If we're willing to put 100% money back guarantee on what we do, what type of work do you think we do?
Give us a call. We're there for you 24/7, 365 days a year.
Enough said.
Welcome back to Truth for Our Time with your host, Tamara Scott.
And thanks for staying with us. I am Tamara Scott. You're listening to Truth for Our Time. If you want archives of the show, you can go to tamarascott.com, and we thank 99.3 FM Webcast One Live for sharing the air with us. We're talking with Bill Northey, Secretary of Agriculture here in Iowa. Iowa being one of the premier states as far as feeding the world. Mm-hmm. And here we are dealing with one of our own, frankly. I don't care what side of the aisle you're on politically, one of our own attacking the farm industry. And Bill, I can't imagine. These farmers have kids, grandkids in the communities. They are all about protecting the water. Nobody is being risked. This isn't a spill where you can trace it back to a farm.
That's right. That's right.
This is...
And there are occasions that happens. If you have a livestock spill or some other spill, folks in agriculture are every bit about stopping that and making sure that people are penalized if something negligent has happened. What we're talking about is what's called non-point, meaning there is no place, no single situation that caused that to happen. It is partly a natural process of water moving through the soil that'll pick up nitrogen. Now, we all believe there are pieces that we can do better, and then the argument comes down, are we going to do that better with a non-regulatory approach, a voluntary approach, or a regulatory approach? I argue a non-regulatory approach is going to be vastly superior because we have farmers that will engage, we have technology that will improve. If you try and put a regulation in place on 23 million acres that all look different out there with farmers that have different resources and different rotations, and some have livestock and some of them don't. Sometimes they're part-time, sometimes they're brand new farmers. You end up with regulation as a very blunt instrument that treats everybody the same and doesn't address the issue in the most efficient way. We want to engage producers, and we want to innovate, and we want people to come up with those next generation solutions that are going to be a part of the solution 10 and 15 years from now. In
a way that doesn't stop those in the business from continuing on. You don't want to prohibit young farmers from starting out or scare people with these tactics right out of the food providing business. This is just a dangerous precedent. And as we talk about on this show all the time, the overregulation, the administrative rule, making administrative law, not passing it through the legislature, but through organizations and agencies such as this. And in one of the articles I read from the Des Moines Register, Bill Stowe is hoping to bring in federal regulations to our state. I don't know how the man goes to the grocery store without being accosted. None of us want any more regulation upon our heads.
I can see the temptation of, if all we have is this regulation, we're going to fix every problem. But the problem is that everything out there has consequences that are unforeseen, has expenses that sometimes often are unrecognized, expenses for the government, expenses for those that are being regulated. How many pieces of paper would we have to generate if we had regulation around every fertilizer application any farmer or homeowner had to put into place? I often look at recycling. Recycling is something that we don't have recycling cops that chase us around and check our bins
Right.
every week, or follow us to Casey's to look at what we throw in the grocery or into the garbage can there. But we have so much more recycling that's going on than used to go on because we've engaged Iowans in that. That's the kind of thing that we need to take on the water quality aspect.
I am sold out on free market. If it's a good idea, folks will come along. If it's a bad idea, they will shed it.
That's right.
And when we get into regulatory like this, how many agencies we probably should be just doing away with that are still there. And as we've told you before on this show, $14,976 could be saved with the average household if we did away with some of these regulatory agencies and their restrictions. Understand, they act as the king because they set some of these. We have Obamacare, for instance, but these regulatory agencies decide how they will implement it, how they will rule over it. They act as the executive branch because they enforce who they come after, when they come after them, and then they act as a judicial when they decide what your fines and your charges are going to be. And David Barton has warned you on this show that they can even imprison. This is a totally dangerous precedent. I see it in the cake baker out west, who not only did they fine them and take them out of business, and they came after them personally. That's nothing more than an aggressive government not liking your views. This just makes me so concerned, Bill Northey, that a Bill Stowe, our own, would come after 3 Iowa counties like this. How, folks, do you decide what in the river came from where?
Right.
This.
You know, it's a great contrast to, I was at a meeting yesterday with some farmers from the Cedar Falls area. And to see these farmers engage, they're investing their own money at a time where the finances on the farm are tough. Our prices are half of what they were 3 or 4 years ago. Many are not making money. They're digging in their pocket. They're paying part of the cost of putting cover crops on their land, and will pay cost share. Some of them are putting the whole cost of those cover crops on, paying part of the cost of putting in what we call edge-of-field practices, bioreactors or saturated buffers, and you can go to our iowaagriculture.gov website and learn more about what those are. But farmers are engaged in this. They care about this. This is not something that they do 1 year and walk away from. They intend, in many cases, their families have been there for generations. They intend future generations to be there. And they want to do the right thing, not only for their family, but for their neighbors and their communities. And we tap into that, we're going to be very successful in a non-regulatory approach.
Coming together, working together for a solution is always better than pitting people against each other with regulatory overreach and restrictions and penalty. And you mentioned generations of farmers. And when we come back at the end of the show, I want you to talk about our Century Farms. It is just such a treat. And to see you talk about it, the pride that we have as farming families in Iowa. So we'll save some time out, and we'll come back and talk about that at the end of the show. But right now we're talking about this lawsuit because this won't just impact Sac, Calhoun, and Buena Vista.
It won't. As I talk to my colleagues around the country, they all know that it certainly will impact every other Iowa farmer out there and other their states as well, farmers in their states. So any kind of drainage. But I would also argue that it could impact our urban areas. So stormwater that goes down through a storm sewer to save a development from being flooded when we have a 6-inch rain is just like a tile line in a field. It captures that storm water. Traditionally, that storm water has had a variance from the Clean Water Act, and what is really being tried here is to take away that variance. Now, they're not suing residential areas. He's suing farmers. It's easier to pick on that, but I think the door gets open to other pieces, and I don't think it just stops, although this suit is about nitrates. It doesn't just stop at nitrates. No. How about salt, winter salt that's applied to streets? And I would argue those do not need to be regulated the same way that he's asking for regulation around farm water or urban water. We do have cleanest water, I believe, that we have seen as a state. We have mechanisms. If we have those occasional bumps above that 10 parts per million, that's why we have a nutrient reduction plant here and in a few other places. A lot of Iowans pull their water from from wells, and those don't see the same bounce in the amount of nitrate issues. We have safe water here. Let's not lose sight of that. Let's figure out how we make improvements, and I'd argue engaging folks in all areas. We're doing a bunch of work in the urban areas. We have 9 urban water quality projects that are out there as well, putting in capturing rainwater off of our parking lots and running it through a bioswale or a little area where the water filtrates through the soil before it gets to the storm sewer. Ways that still allow us to protect the resources out there and the investments out there, but allow us to improve the water quality both in urban and in rural areas.
Being good stewards. The EPA, Environmental Protection Agency, is one of those we hear candidates talk about doing away with, and many of us applaud. We'd like to know what day 2 looks like, but we applaud. They're going after your grills. In July of last year, Detroit News reported they were coming after the grills and the smoke from the grills. Amount of electricity in your display on your microwaves. Road constructions being stopped in the Upper Peninsula in Michigan. They are an aggressive group. We've got to go. We'll be right back. Stay tuned for more Truth for Our Time on 99.3 FM.
Credit cards are like grandkids. They love you, sometimes get out of control, and it's fun to get a new one. Who can stop them from piling on?
Hi, I'm Tom Coates with Consumer Credit of Des Moines. At the end of the day, you can return the grandkids, but you're stuck paying off bad credit card debt. We'll help you put the fun back into using credit cards responsibly. Right, kids?
Yeah! If you need help getting credit cards off your back, call Consumer Credit of Des Moines.
Hi, my name is David Burrier, your Hope Coach. I host a live weekly talk show called I've Been There every Thursday afternoon at 5:30, right here on webcast1live.com, and on my weekly radio program Saturday mornings at 10 on Truth Network 99.3 FM. I interview common everyday people who have survived incredible life challenges and who testify to God's faithfulness in the midst of their storms. So join me as we bring a message of hope and encouragement. Everybody needs hope. I know, because I've been there.
Rockton Prevention is celebrating 25 years of creating a caring community. We want to say thank you to the tens of thousands of Rock High School mentors that have carried our message of health, love, and encouragement to over 1.5 million children, teachers, and parents. Our mentors teach children methods and skills to prevent bullying and drug use. Thank you to all the school administrators, teachers, and counselors for their opportunity to serve you. Rock on, fair citizens. Rock on. This is Pat McManus for Rockton Prevention, the Richard O. Jacobson Foundation, and this station.
From the RE/MAX Real Estate Concept Studios, this is Webcast One Live.
Welcome back to Truth for Our Time with your host, Tamara Scott.
And thanks for staying with us. I took a breath during the break, as you could tell. This just ignites my fire, and it should yours as well. Congressman Randy Forbes just lets us know that 17% is the approximate amount the average American pays in combined federal, state, local government wireless taxes and fees on your phone bill each month. That's according to the Tax Foundation from Congressman Randy Forbes. 17%, that's just your phone bill. Then we get to the gas pump. And I don't know, Secretary Northey, what is the taxes on each gallon of gas right now?
Oh, I should know that, and I didn't mean to the range, but I don't remember exactly.
I think
it should be on the pump.
I think it is on the pump. I think so. Take note of that when you go to the pump. Look at that,
and especially with these lower fuel prices. It's a big portion.
It is a large portion of each gallon of gas. And I read something, and I didn't save it, and I get so much across my computer, I have to save it, or I never find it again. But they were suggesting a 33% increase federally in the cost of gas. Think that through, folks. It's like they really don't want you driving. They really do want us to be. They're going to level the playing field. Remember when Obama said he's going to fundamentally change America? Boy, has he. We just didn't realize how much he'd fundamentally changed the Middle East and the rest of the world in the process by his lack of policy or poor policy. It matters. You are in Iowa, first in the nation. You get more time with candidates than those folks in D.C., to be honest with you. Take time. Go to these events. Ask the questions that are on your heart. Somebody else may not have thought about it in the way that you have thought about it. politely, kindly ask the question, be bright, be brief, and be gone. Don't take up their time. Don't harass them. Just talk to them, because we set policy in this state. And to be honest with you, there's a lot of other states that maybe don't like the fact that we do have this kind of influence. But if you take First in the Nation away, you lose every movement candidate, small candidates, unknown candidates who may have a lot to offer. But they would never get a chance with a national primary or even a Super Tuesday that just happens. It happens so quickly, they'd have to have money for media, and many of them would not if they didn't grow a network. Plus, Iowa is a great testing ground. You get somebody in here who may have a great name recognition, but their polls go down once they get here. Why is that? Because they don't have the network ability. Anybody can give a speech that may even resonate, but does it motivate enough to be able to cultivate a network? So this is a great testing ground for who's going to be a candidate on either side for the nominee. We go both ways. We've elected 2004 Bush and then 2008 Obama. So again, it's a fair state for everyone, but you have a great opportunity to be involved. I think you can go to iowagop.com or iowademocrat.org, and they can give you your precinct locations. It's right in your neighborhood, somewhere close by. You'll meet with your neighbors, and this is real grassroots. This is what made America strong. This is we the people. Don't let it go by without you being involved in it. Congress, I just elevated you, buddy. Wow. You might want to consider that. If we were in the liberal left, that's all that matters. That's how we identify ourselves, right? But Secretary Bill Northey is with me. We were talking about this law. To me, this is a nuisance lawsuit, frankly. In any other field, we call it a mistake. In courts, we call it precedent. And there's the danger of this becoming a precedent, not only for these 3 counties, but for the rest of us. What can Iowans do? Can we make our voices known? Who would we call?
You know, I think certainly legislators are looking at this. They're looking at how even we structure government entities like a Des Moines Waterworks. Are there laws that should be different in what liability there is? Is there a way to protect farmers or drainage districts from these kinds of suits, or the suits that would be generated by whatever a decision of a judge ends up being? So there's several different ways there. There are ways to be able to support the folks that are defending this financially through drainage districts or through counties. Many counties have stepped forward and said, we're Webster County and we're not a part of this lawsuit, but we want to help support these 3 counties because it would affect our county here, not only our farmers, but the others in this county as well.
Right. So Secretary Bill Northey is my guest today. We're taping this at 10 a.m. Wednesday live when we do the show in Webcast One Live Studios. You'll get to hear it on 99.3 FM, and it will be on tamarascott.com archives. Secretary Northey, I get to hear you speak across the state, and one of the things I think you really enjoy doing, at least I see the pride in your face for the families in Iowa when we get to the Century Farms.
Really just love that. We have such a tradition of farming. We talked about it today, but we have folks that have farmed this, a farm for 100 years or 150 years, and we celebrate those at the State Fair. We gave out 366 Century Farm Awards, meaning were awards to families that had the farm in the family, obviously multiple generations by the time it gets to 100 years. Folks come around for that. They're excited as can be. We had one of the folks that came across the stage that I think I had 6 of their family members mention it before the guy in the wheelchair comes up, and he said, Grandpa had a brain surgery on Sunday, and it's Thursday, and he was going to be here.
He was determined to be here.
And he came up with the biggest smile on his face, and he said, there's no way they were keeping me in the hospital for this. And that's what it means to folks. We gave out 101 what we call Heritage Farm Awards. That means the farm has been in the same family for 150 years. So since the Civil War. That was just what we did this year. We give about those same numbers every year. I'm sure this next year will be the same. And if you're at the State Fair on Thursday this last year, and I assume this next year, we did it in the show pavilion, come, you'll just see a lot of tears and hugging.
I'll bet it's tear-filled.
And it's Iowa, you'll know somebody, right? Even though you don't know that you know anybody there, you may even be related to somebody that's there. But it's my favorite day of the year, and you can just, it's really who Iowa is. And those are the kinds of the folks that are going to make the difference and create the generational change. They don't need to be sued to do that. They just need to be empowered to do that.
Exactly. Again, I see it in your face here, and I'm getting teary-eyed in the studio, but this is what makes Iowa so precious. When these candidates come into the state, these aren't folks who are moving from city to city for mobile upward on a career ladder. These are families who are invested in their communities. The same folks, when I go to county to county, I'll say, how long have you lived here? 70, 60, the newbies will be 25 years. These are people who are invested, and it says a lot about Iowa character when you've lived so long in a community that people are still doing business with you 2 generations, 3 generations. Your character is noble. That's what you're known for in Iowa. It's just a great state, isn't it, Bill?
It really is. You have folks that are, on their school boards, and they're at their churches, and 4th generation church members, with their cousins, and they have been going as a family to the same Thanksgiving gathering for generations, but now it's so big they got to have it at the golf course.
Right.
They can't just have it in the church basement anymore. And we need to tap into that. We need to be reminded of that, and hopefully that overwhelms some of the government influence coming from outside. But we also need to make sure that we are doing everything we can to protect that and that opportunity for the next generation to get to experience the same thing. The government's not so much a part of everything that we have to do in our business and private life that it isn't the same for the next generation.
Isn't it refreshing, folks, to hear someone in government talking about the fact that government isn't supposed to be all-consuming and all-governing over everything that you do? Bill Northey, thank you for joining me today.
Thank you, Tamara.
I am Tamara Scott. I thank you for joining me as well. We try to give you information that you can use that you don't likely get everywhere else, but you've now got it. Be encouraged and never be complacent.